All right. We need to have a talk. So, this 2022 season has been off to an amazing start, and I mean a really wild start. We have 25 different drivers having scored a top 10 in the first 3 races, the most in NASCAR history. And side note, none of these drivers are Denny Hamlin. Only one driver has finished top 10 in all 3 races, that being, of course, Eric Almirola. Only 4 drivers, Almirola, Larson, Elliott, and Kyle Busch, have scored a top 10 in 2 of the first 3 races. Like 2 top 10s in the first 3 races, of course. And finally, most importantly, we have seen a ton, and I mean a ton of drama and tension starting to boil over between drivers. And this is what I really want to talk about, because every week it seems like something happens between 2 drivers, whether it's Austin Cindric and Ryan Blaney after the Daytona 500, where Cindric just put Blaney in the wall. To me, it looks like he blocks him, but it's for a win. People understood that. Blaney said he was going to kill Cindric on the radio. People said that, oh, maybe tension's boiling over between Blaney and Cindric. Then next week, Larson pretty much did the same thing to Chase Elliott. And then Elliott got angry on the radio, just like Blaney did. And then people were saying, oh, now it's Larson and Elliott. Oh, what's with teammates? And now, after the Las Vegas race, the narrative, the beef narrative, like I like to say it switched over to Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman, because Kyle Busch, after Bowman won the race, Kyle Busch got angry on the radio and said, had some choice words to say, saying that Bowman just locked into a win and stuff like that. My point is, every week it seems like some kind of beef happens, and when it happens, everyone feels like they have to take a side for whatever reason. Maybe they like a driver, maybe they hate another driver. It doesn't matter to me. It needs to stop. Both the fans and the media, they need to stop pushing this narrative that there is a rivalry forming between drivers. Like every time something happens, either on the track or off the track, they need to stop. They need to stop pushing this narrative. Stop taking things out of context. Stop dissecting every single word a driver says to see and drawing conclusions that, oh, this driver feels some type of way about another guy. No. Drivers do not hate each other, and they are not looking to wreck each other at the first opportunity over one single incident. Notice how I said one single incident, because if a driver ends up wrecking another one on purpose, it's because it's usually because they have a lot of pent-up aggression in them. You look at Matt Kenseth, for example, back in 2015. When he wrecked Joey Logano, the sentiment was, this was a lot of weeks of frustration on Kenseth's part, from getting spun out at Kansas to Logano brake checking him at Talladega to the way that race ended very controversially, and it ended up knocking Matt Kenseth out of the playoffs. And then Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, their antics during that Martinsville restart, leading to all those incidents eventually led to Kenseth just wanting to take out his aggression on taking out Logano, and that's what he did. So this wasn't just a single incident in Kenseth's case. It was a lot of pent-up aggression on him. So why is this? Why is it that NASCAR fans and the media, they are like this? Well, it has a lot to do with how we were introduced to NASCAR. The race that put NASCAR on the map and considered to be one of the greatest races in NASCAR history was the 1979 Daytona 500. One of the main highlights, or rather the main highlight of that race, was the post-race fight between the Allison brothers and Cale Yarborough. A photo, or rather a picture of that of that incident managed to make it all the way to the front page of the New York Times, and NASCAR went fully national. It was part of mainstream and all that stuff. From that point on, NASCAR became a national sport, not just a southeastern sport. Another factor, and this is something that has more to do with us, our generation, it has to do with NASCAR YouTube. Now, I'm not talking about the NASCAR YouTube of today. NASCAR YouTubers becoming have kind of become like, there's this community growing up. But back before 2017, honestly, because the NASCAR YouTube community is fairly new, but before 2017, or rather, before 2017, the NASCAR YouTube was in a very awkward place, and the only source of like NASCAR YouTube videos you could find, they were mostly NASCAR crashes and fights. And that has a lot to do with how fans are feeling like right now. It seems fans just want to watch NASCAR more for the crashes, the wrecked cars, and the fights, and less for the racing. Like back in, if you transport yourself back in time, if you time travel back to the year, let's say 2010 or 2011, and you type up on, and you look up on YouTube NASCAR, the top search results will be NASCAR fights or NASCAR crashes or NASCAR crash compilation or something like that. That was most of the, and if you looked at most of the NASCAR at the most watched videos back then, most of them were either crashes or fights. So then again, just like I said, it seems like fans want to watch NASCAR more for the crashes, the wrecked cars, and the fights, and less for the racing. But the truth is, all-out fist fights are really few and far between. Like most of the, if there is any post-race drama or some altercation, it's just simple discussion, an argument, maybe a bit of pushing and shoving, but that's about it. Drivers usually leave it at let's agree to disagree and just move on. And that's pretty ironic to say in this like boys have at it era, where NASCAR just they don't really step in, or they very rarely do step in. They let drivers just take matters into their own hands. It is very rare for drivers to not really get into that much of an altercation, but it's true. Very rarely do tensions boil over, and most drivers, they tend to vent their frustrations out either on the radio or by racing the other driver like a bit harder. And this is another point that I want to get to. The radio chatter. Come on, guys. Radio chatter, it's not meant to be taken seriously. Drivers say a lot of stuff, a lot of nonsensical stuff when they're angry, when it's in the heat of the moment. They are grown men in a high-stress environment. What do you expect? They're bound to have multiple slips of the tongue every single race. Hell, that's what radioactive is for. All those like radioactive segments that NASCAR puts out on YouTube, it's for us to have a laugh at what drivers think. I don't understand why people are angry at someone like Kyle Busch for something he said on the radio when in Kyle Busch's case, he's angry on the radio most of the time and people take it for granted. It's even entertaining watching him rage sometimes. Like most of the most iconic radioactive sound bites, they come from Kyle Busch and people just laugh it out and take it for granted. Whether you love Kyle Busch or hate him, you cannot deny that the guy on the radio, he has a lot of a personality, but he's also a hothead on the radio. And again, it is not meant to be taken seriously. Look at when Ryan Blaney said he was going to kill Cindric after the Daytona 500. People didn't take it seriously. When Chase Elliott said, "Oh, that stupid motherfucker," and and all that stuff like that. So many. He said he dropped the F-bomb like 5 times in a single sentence, I believe. But yeah, when Chase Elliott got angry, people said, "Oh, they didn't pay it no mind." But when it's Kyle Busch and and he didn't even say a single F-bomb. He just said, oh, Alex Bowman, he just got lucky. The same guy who gets lucky every single time and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. And people get angry because of that. And it's not just the Alex Bowman fans. It's also like Kyle Busch haters and even people who do not like Kyle Busch who took offense to what he said. And come on, people, it's not that deep. Again, it's in the heat of the moment. Kyle Busch is just angry and frustrated he lost. Hell, they even tweeted out, like, the day after the Las Vegas race ended, Kyle Busch, he hit up Alex Bowman and he told him that, hey, I'm sorry that I said that I didn't mean to. I was just frustrated about losing that race. You don't take that seriously. That was just me venting on the radio like I always do. You see, that's just typical stuff. And I don't understand why people are taking this seriously simply because it's Kyle Busch. Because if we took radio chatter seriously, then Ryan Blaney would have been suspended indefinitely for just threatening to kill Cindric. Just for that, like, this is compared to what Kyle Busch said. This is nothing compared to what Blaney said, in my opinion. And again, this goes hand in hand with NASCAR, and the fact that people are just pushing that, both fans, and also the media, they're also guilty of this. This goes hand in hand with NASCAR and this culture of entertainment that they have cultivated during this past, more specifically during this past decade, but it can be traced as far back as the early 2000s, honestly, since the Brian France era. NASCAR has always been on the pursuit of entertainment. And that pre-race skit they did prior to the Las Vegas race, the one that they featured like versions of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott just having a moment. It's a perfect example of that. Yes, that skit was really cringe-inducing, and I do not want Fox to do that again because they were just pushing a narrative, and by that point most of the fans, they had just like grown up and moved on from that incident. But now here is NASCAR on Fox trying to open a can of worms again with another cringe-inducing skit between Larson and Elliott. But that further proves my point. NASCAR is just trying to entertain, and if you look at most of the throwback clips, every time NASCAR on Instagram, every time NASCAR on Fox or the main the NBC NASCAR, either one of those Instagram pages, every time it's Throwback Day, 9 times out of 10 they're going to feature one incident or one clip of something that happened that eventually led to an altercation or something that eventually boiled over into something else. Like, every time NASCAR goes to Martinsville or like the playoff Martinsville race, you know for a fact they're going to Logano being put in the wall by Kenseth is going to be in there. You know for a fact it's going to be in there. And it doesn't matter whether they suspended Kenseth or not. Yeah, Kenseth ended up being suspended for that. But still, NASCAR is still using that incident as marketing, to market themselves. You see that in commercials too. And again, not only is it a bit hypocritical, but there is also a part of them pushing that narrative as well. So it's both the fans are guilty of this, and also the media for feeding the fans even further into this beef. Just let it go and move on, people. Unless those tensions boil over and we start seeing like something else, like a Jeff Gordon Clint Bowyer in 2012, that was like a season-long rivalry. Unless something like that happens, come on, just let it go and move on. It's not that deep, people.